So now we have the basis of our game where we can move our rover around. We know we win the game if we get to the base and we lose the game if we get to the rocks, but it's essentially not that much of an exciting game yet. So what we want to do now is bring in a variable and give it a bit of a mission or task to complete along the way. So at this point, I'm going to just add another sprite, and you could always draw one, but just to keep things moving, I'm just going to go and select the ball. For now, I'm just going to pop the ball up there. Now, I'm going to create some code under the ball. So this code exists under the Mars rover sprite. I'm going to click over here and attach this code. So same thing, I want this to happen when the green flag is clicked. And what I want to happen is when the rover gets to this, I'm going to say this is some sort of sample that the rover has to collect before moving on to the base. So therefore, if you got to the base without collecting this, you wouldn't win the game. Now I want it to vanish when you've picked it up, so you kind of know you've picked it up. So because it's going to vanish at some point, I need to make sure that it shows when I restart the game. So I'm just going to grab the show block, put that up there. So that means it'll definitely be on. Now I want a loop, and this can go on forever. We could do the sort of repeat until block, but essentially this can carry on for the duration of the game until obviously the game's stopped. So forever, and it's going to be an if question. So if the ball is touching this sprite, so sensing, so if touching sprite 1, so those two come into contact, I want it to vanish. So that's going to be under looks and hide. So if that happens, hide it. Now, the other thing I want to do is I want the computer to remember that that event's going to happen. So at this point, I'm going to create a variable. So I'm going to go into here. Variables. I'm going to create myself a new variable. So make a variable, and I'm going to call this sample. Okay, now you notice sample appeared up over here. Now we can move that around, put it somewhere else in the screen, or we can just hide it altogether. It's still there as a variable, but this is whether I see it or not. Now, what I want to happen is when this hits this, when the two make contact, the Mars rover and the ball, I want my variable value to change to 1. Now you see it set my variable. My variable is a different variable over here. I want to choose sample, so make sure that's set to sample. So I'm going to change that to a 1. So this will be a 0 up until these two make contact. And then this will change to 1, and on I go to the base. Now, when I restart the game at the moment, this is going to stay at 1. So I'm going to go, I'm done with the code here now. Pause the video here if you just want to copy that across. I'm going to go back into the sprite here. I'm going to make sure, so I'm going to go set, let's change that over here this time, the sample to 0. So at the start of the game, before I enter this loop, it's going to set it to 0. If it was inside this loop, it would continually reset to 0. So it's got to happen before the loop. Okay, let's give that a test. We'll just start the game. So off we go, and there we see the sample change to 1. Now I haven't changed any of the conditions for winning the game at the moment, so those will remain the same. So the next thing I want to do is I need to have a sort of a successful, couple of successful winning options. So at the moment, it just says, well done, you're touching the colour, you've reached the base. So I'm going to go back to my operators, and this time we used the OR operator before. One of two things could happen to stop this loop. I'm going to bring the AND operator in, so I'm going to take that over there, pop that in there. So one thing that needs to be true is it's touching that colour, and also I'm going to bring this equals operator over from here. I'm going to change that to 1. So this would be, it's going to go into variables and bring the sample down here. So now the if statement is, if the sprite is touching the green colour and you've managed to get the sample on the way, well done, you've reached your base, with the sample. I'm now going to, and just to make it easier, I'm just going to move that block. I'm just going to right click and duplicate this and just make sure I pop that underneath there. I can pop that one back on there now. Scroll down a bit like this. So now the second one, if you're touching that color and the sample does not equal 1, i.e. it still equals 0, you haven't gone via that, then the message will be, you've reached your base without the sample. Try again. So therefore we haven't won. Right, as we said, each time we add something, just test that those things are working. So it's going to stop, start the game. So off I go. I've collected the sample and you've reached the base with the sample. Let's check that the other version works as well. So off I go and you've reached the base without the sample. Try again. Brilliant. Still a pretty simple game. So I'm going to stop the video there. And in the next video, I'm going to show you how we can make this a bit more interesting.